Again, folks, all right, click the links for Odyssey, Bit Chute, join the channel, become a member, support channel, coffee, crypto, subscribe star, Cash App, or the various other links. Be sure to join the Telegram. It is the Telegram, Odyssey, and Gab are probably the best free speech platforms, but they are free speech platforms. So you're going to see some objectionable language, though you won't see it from me. So this is an old chart from 2011, but it kind of shows the progress from 1983. It would have been cooler if that was 1984 to 2011. And the progress is not in a direction that if you value the free exchange of ideas, the open marketplace of ideas, sunlight being the best disinfectant, the spirit of the West of put forth an idea, have it examined, rebutted. Your argument is sharpened when you talk to other people. If you don't know your opponent's argument, you don't know your own. The danger of being in an echo chamber, which people on both sides, to be fair, are very comfortable being in. I will say people on the right are much more free, sort of because the structure is different when you're on the right and the far right, because words themselves they don't catch people's attention. If you say some like a hot word or a hot concept, it doesn't stop the talk. It doesn't stop the exchange of ideas, where on the left it will. So I'm trying to say, like, the structure on the right is fundamentally better suited to the open exchange of ideas, because you can say things that aren't politically correct, even if they're wildly offensive, using euphemisms and epithets and those sort of things that there's no need to use that kind of language in my personal opinion, because I always think discourse should be a very adult manner, but it also doesn't stop the conversation. Where on the right, it's like, oh, we don't speak that way, and what are your pronouns? Like, oh, I don't want to use that kind of pronouns. Let's just get right to the heart of the topic. Oh, yeah, and you see, it's like they have a weird self-limiting thing. They did this like socialist speech where they got on stage, they introduced themselves and their pronouns, and I don't know what land they were standing on, and it's like, Indian Tribe A. We're standing on Indian Tribe A's land. I feel like, yeah, but they took it from Indian Tribe B. They took it from Indian Tribe C. You get where we're going with this. Like, you gonna go back to Pangea and Gondwana land? Because there were some dinosaurs here before the Indians. Or, maybe if you believe the Viking thing, that the Vikings were the first people in the New World, which is kind of an interesting theory. The Indians themselves has this theory about seeing the Vikings, these red-haired and blonde-haired people. It's kind of a trip. I don't know where I was going with this. The consolidation of the media, and this is just a 2011. And this is a 2018, a little bit more recent. If anything, 2022, Disney's going to be bigger, I think. So this is just media, but it's interesting because you have to look at something like Twitter, which has investment from Vanguard and Blackrock, which are, I believe, the two biggest companies on Earth. So I'm not quite sure how you'd factor that in. But the point is this consolidation of ideas going through censorious checkpoints, like the concept of. A really terrifying idea is the Google and the App Store. Well, they control 90% of app traffic. And yes, you can go to telegram.org and you can download a program like we did back in the old days, which wasn't that long, 20 or 30 years ago, I guess it's kind of long ago. But so the point is that these little checkpoints, these key nodes in infrastructure, where if you're a censor like Google and Apple, and you have a Parler, has they had an app, I think they're out of business now, and they just get kicked off unless they abide by the terms of service of Google and Apple. So it's like, Parler's not an independent company, neither is Getter, and anything that goes through the app stores, you're not independent companies. You're subject to the terms and conditions of these other greater overlord companies, which is, is interesting because the cell phones are coming from these people, and cell phones and app stores are so closely tied together. It's like, yeah, some people jailbreak phones, and there's a concept of having a new phone system come out, like an open phone system without all the bloatware. There's a guy on YouTube. There's this kind of chubby Asian guy who does videos like that. He seems like a libertarian free speech guy, and I wish I could remember his name. He's on YouTube. If you just search YouTube for how to de-Google your phone or how to jailbreak your phone, his channel will come up. He does live streams too. There's got to be something like that. There's got to be some way around the App Store where there's a third app store that people can go to, and you can have apps that have got some pre-screening going on for malware and virusware and stuff like that, as opposed to going to people's websites and downloading it. Because Otherwise, if you have these two app stores that control 90% of traffic, then you're getting such this myopic view of perspective. It's like a perspective of allowable opinion. It's that concept of controlled ops. It's this spectrum where within the spectrum you may have fierce debate, but you may not go outside the spectrum, or you're a wrong thinker, you're deplatformed, you're censored. There's that clip of Ben Shapiro. This girl's channel has it on YouTube, saying some things like openly advocating for censorship as long as someone, even on the right or the left, says something that was against the groupthink of the controlled ops left. And there's that little clip of Ben Shapiro. Yeah, I'll try to include a link to it. It's kind of a trip to think like, oh, I mean, if you're on this like MAGA normie right and you listen to Ben Shapiro and Rubin and a bunch of these really milquetoast type of guys, you got to hear these kind of clips because you have to know what they actually think. And they're in it for $1 primarily, and they're in it to control the narrative away from the real free exchange of ideas that you really see on Gab, Telegram, and Odyssey. All right, so Elon Musk really triggers the blue check mark. They were saying some things that I almost thought were ironic parodies, and then people other blue check marks started to parody the legitimate blue check marks who really were losing their rag. Like circa 2016, they go, if Trump wins, we're going to Canada. And you know, the funny thing is, like, the people who said that, like the very wealthiest people were making these claims like, you guys have all the money in the world. If you want to pick up and go to Canada or Europe or South America or Mexico, get a hacienda somewhere, it's funny, they always go like Canada. I'm like, how come you're not going to Mexico? Weird. I mean, there are nice places, nice towns in Mexico too. You might have to pay off your own private guards, but I mean, these people have all the money in the world. It's weird that they always say Canada. So no, people are not gonna. They're spurging out. They're absolutely spurging out. It's like, we're gonna leave the platform. Oh yeah, where are you gonna go? You're gonna go to Gab, where it's going to Twitter, leaving Twitter to go to Gab. You think it's like, wow. Get ready to people who go to Gab expecting, like, there are right-wing grifters, and they're not total grifters. They're like, they're taking advantage of a right-wing situation, and they're usually POC, and they think they're going to go to Gab and they're going to have some protection for things. And if your ideas aren't correct, or if you're not willing to have some pushback for your ideas, you will get nuked from orbit on Gab. There are no protections. You can't threaten somebody with illegal acts, fair enough. But other than that, you put ideas out there, and if the ideas are not, it doesn't matter if they're good or bad. It matters, like, they're going to get criticized, and how you respond to that criticism will determine your experience on Gab. You just got to keep a sense of humor about it and engage with people. It's like, it's not forth some ideas and somebody points out the flaws. Well, you probably need to examine that, and you might come to a different conclusion, or maybe not. Maybe they're wrong. But the point is, on Gab and Telegram, stuff like that, it's like the ideas go back and forth. It's a dialogue, where Twitter is more of a monologue, because if someone on Twitter drops some offensive language, they're just going to get kicked off the platform, where they don't on Gab. It's like, you just learn to ignore it. Anyway, being called a bundle of sticks and told to delete yourself. It's like, believe it or not, somebody says that so many times, it just doesn't bother you anymore. You have to get very thick skin, which is like, you think you have a thick skin on Twitter, Gab and Telegram are just next level. Anyway, so Elon Musk is triggering these rich and powerful who control the media, who, the people on Twitter are going, oh, we don't want the rich and powerful controlling the media. It's like, well, who do you think already controls the media? Do you think poor people from the moons of Neptune are sending in signals across time and space? Bloomberg, Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, those guys are okay. But Elon Musk, the rocket ship guy, looks like a penis, sort of does, is not okay. Why exactly? Because he's not a far left nut job. Twitter is more important to them than I previously suspected. It is the premier platform to disseminate propaganda. Its advantages, the infrastructure is in place, and it has an addicted user base. Literally, Twitter is opium for them. The same neurotransmitters that fire off when you smoke a cigarette, the serotonin, acetylcholine, dopamine. I forget the other one. There's like 4 main ones. There's another one. They feel good. They're stimulants, or they're just like happy, content feelings. They all fire off when you click those, when you click the like on social media. Every time you click a like or you go back and you see that a post is getting attention, it's triggering you're getting a flush of neurotransmitters. And it's kind of a tricksy thing because unless you're selling a product or you're pushing some ideological belief, it might just not matter. Like if you're not actually accomplishing anything other than to virtue signal in an echo chamber, but you're not actually moving forth new ideas or changing anything, then it's like you're just kind of intellectually masturbating yourself with these dopamine feedback loops. So anyway, Twitter's got all that infrastructure in place, and people go, oh, we're going to leave. Where are you going to go? Gab, Getter, Parler, Frank Talks, Truth Social, and then there's some other smaller ones like Post. It's POA.st. It's just there's like 12 people on it. I'm on it, and there's some tiny sites like that. There's World Truth Video. It's a video hosting site, but they also have like a chat. It's like those kind of small chats. You're better off incorporating with Gab and getting more people on there as opposed to like, it's like when religions they keep fracturing off into smaller groups. Sorry, I had a little doggish interruptus situation. When I was a kid, growing up, we used to have this neighborhood dog who would go to house. She never crossed the street. She would walk on the sidewalk. This big, I don't know what it was some kind of big dog. She would go to house looking for treats, and if the door wasn't pushed shut, closed shut all the way, she was a big dog. She would push the door open, and she'd go wait in your kitchen for you to give you treats. You come home, and there's just like 80-pound whatever sitting patiently looking at the refrigerator, looking at you. It was a different time in America. It's a different time even in California when you could leave the door unlocked like that. It is a sad time to see neighborhoods that had stuff like that. Horses walking down the street, and now there's security cameras and steel doors and stabbings and shootings. It's sad to see civilization go down. Oh, but we have these recipes. I get distracted. It's too base for YouTube. I don't know. Maybe I'll try it again. The thing is, if Elon brings a little bit more free speech to the platform, it's not like he's going to go crazy and there's going to be a bunch of, all the conspiracy stuff that got kicked off of YouTube a few years ago. It's still a commercial entity. He might make the platform a little bit more fair and balanced, but he still needs advertising dollars. So he's not going to get too crazy with it. The funny thing is about a lot of these people who say they always talk about feeling safe. And you're talking about a digital platform where, you're not in any actual physical danger from the platform unless the lithium battery overheats and blows up. But they seem to be happy to skip over actual safety, like actual, malum and say batteries against the person. It's like, oh, we're going to support, what is it? We're going to support Asian, whatever the Asian thing that was going on. It's like, yeah, that got a little play, but it didn't really get a lot of play because ultimately you knew it's not politically correct to talk about supporting Asians. So it's like that stuff just didn't get retweeted, which is another little. If I was Asian, I'd probably be a little bit nervous living in a big city. But there is a tool that will make people better behaved, and it's available in a variety of calibers. Something small that you can keep on you if you're Asian, and in California it's a misdemeanor. If you don't have a criminal record, I believe it's a misdemeanor to carry concealed. But if you're, 60-year-old Asian doing business in Oakland, I don't know what to tell you. Probably better to be, judged than carried as it is. Anyway, so Twitter is very, very important to them, as you can see by them losing their freaking minds. Just the threat of a more fair platform terrifies the left wing such that it's funny. I don't know if they volunteered to buy it themselves. Could they beat the share price? I don't know how that works. And the meltdown has been epic so far. People are predicting World War III if Twitter has a more fair terms of service. Now, here's the thing. They are right, sort of. War is always on the horizon. This video got really dark. War's always on the horizon at all times in human history. Look at the situation in the West now. Nothing is inevitable, but as a matter of probabilities, you can see the conditions are ripe. There's literally conflict between two countries right now that are that could go sideways in an instant, if you know what I'm talking about. It could just get as ugly. It could be World War III, which would it bring on a civil war? It might. Think about World War III now. It's like the countries, because of globalism, the demographics are such that you would have more internal conflict than you had back in 1940. Anyway, so Vanguard and BlackRock are involved in Twitter. They have positions worth about 10%. And they recently bought, BlackRock, I think, increased their position from like 8% to 10% because they were expecting the sale. I think they were expecting the sale to go through, and so they would have made a quick little profit for their mutual fund holders. So these mega NGOs are pushing the Klaus Schwab dream of you'll own nothing because they'll own it. You'll be cattle. You'll be debt slaves. You will rent. Soros, Schwab, Rothschilds, Vanguard, BlackRock will be the ones actually in charge. You'll merely rent from them as long as you behave yourself and are a good thinker. Except if BlackRock owns the neighborhood and has multiple positions in social media companies, keep in mind, it's like you're using a cell phone that's tracking your every movement. You're not private. Nothing you're doing is private unless you're taking extraordinary measures to maintain privacy, and most people aren't. They're not using de-Googled phones and VPNs and that kind of stuff. So they've got like 10% of Twitter right now, and probably a bunch of other social media companies. So what happens if you're not a good thinker and you effectively live in a company town, which is effectively a company town country, an urban jungle world? Shouldn't BlackRock and the rest eventually get a seat in Congress at the United Nations to have representative positions? If mega NGOs own everything in the country, then you don't have a country, you have a commercial zone controlled by them. So Elon put in an offer, I think of 54, and Twitter refused to take a vote. And they did something called the poison pill, where they have a limited share release where they dilute the company value by issuing lower priced shares, but only to a limited group of purchasers to maintain control of the company, instead of just accepting what would be an overvalued offer of $54, which Vanguard thinks the company, last month they valued it as $30. So many people actually believe Twitter is undervalued, which implies it has potential but is not managed effectively, which might lead some conspiracy theorists to wonder why Twitter doesn't open up its growth a little bit. It seems like Twitter has an echo chamber now. They kicked off a lot of very famous people, Trump, Alex Jones, hundreds of other people on the right, including right-wing politicians, and it has inhibited growth. I'm only guessing, but I suspect that it has inhibited growth because people want it back and forth. And right now, Twitter is about 80% of a left-wing echo chamber. So the thing is, as you look at the policies that are in place, it seems like they are knowingly hurting growth, but are kept in place so they can control a globalist narrative. That's how powerful Twitter is. I suspect that they will lose a return on investment to keep pushing propaganda, much like Disney and other companies are doing. To think otherwise, to think Disney is a company who's just following financial rules of return on investment, increased shareholder value, it's to ignore that they made a series of bad decisions making woke movies that underperformed and bombed. They wouldn't make those movies. You'd have to think that there were dumb people making negligent decisions. They're not dumb people. They're smart people making intentional decisions. They're not bad decisions. They're financially bad decisions, but they're good decisions if they push the ideology that they want to push, which is what they're doing. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys all next episode.